how might Israeli policies complicate efforts towards peace in the region?
Certainly, Egypt is trying to take advantage of the American pressures and American relations with Trump and Netanyahu to make new pressures not only in Gaza but before Egypt. By provocating and sub-fights of the nature of arming the Egyptian army in that time, or Israel attempted to talk about the presence of the Egyptian army and arms in Sinai, despite the Egyptian-Israeli agreement was amended in 21. So Israel is trying to take advantage of this pressure to execute the project of displacement, to buy more pressure in Egypt and the Palestinian and Gaza, including the threat of the idea of stopping the exchange swap or stalling the withdrawal from Gaza and to execute it in the second phase. And the attempt there is an Israeli raid made by the Israeli forces in Gaza Strip. Therefore, Israel is trying to invest into the space of the American pressures, but they are not enough, and Israel isn't going to execute what they wish in that time. So the issue now is between Egypt and the U.S. and the main countries in the Middle East that they are playing a very effective role, such as Emirates and Saudi Arabia and Qatar or the United States. And normally the direct communications between the Arabs and USA, and Israel is the supervisor of the outputs of these communications to reach a settlement that proper and acceptable by Tel Aviv.
Right. Mr. Dawood, what are the existing concerns regarding the displacement of Palestinians?
Well, again, as Mr. Ihab has referred to, it's something historic. We've been through the major catastrophe of 1948, in which Israel forcibly removed more than 1 Palestinian refugees. And let me remind you that most of the Gaza residents are originally refugees who came from the parts of Palestine that were occupied by Israel in 1948. So, I mean, again, they learned their lesson very well. I mean, that this is not something to even consider, to give up their territory, because, I mean, that's the core, you know, of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I wish that some of President Trump's advisors would have shown him the pictures and the videos of the Palestinians who rushed to go back to their homes in northern Gaza from southern Gaza as soon as the agreement on the opening of the Netzarim corridor went into effect, despite the fact that they knew very well they're going back to rubbles. They're not going back to a kind of comfortable living, but still, they insisted to go back and resettle the parts of Gaza that they were forced to leave as soon as the war started. And right now, I mean, at least according to estimates, at least 500,000 Palestinians have moved back from the south to the north in a matter of a few days. So that's not a kind of a people who's going to accept any proposal related to being moved from Palestine, from their land in Gaza, to either Egypt or Jordan, knowing the complexities in both countries. I mean, again, this is a threat to Egypt's national security, a participation which President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi clearly stated, we're not going to take part in any injustice. And the thought and the proposal to move the Palestinian people forcibly is not just a matter of ethnic cleansing or violation of basic agreements, but it's again a major injustice that's going to be inflicted on the Palestinian people at the time everybody is trying to work on finding a permanent settlement for this long-standing conflict. And I guess it was very important to deliver this message as well, if I might remind you, ahead of the meeting that's supposed to take place on Tuesday between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So at least right now, the Arab stand is very clear. We're not going to stand anything close to displacement again. We want to go back to the roots of solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and that's not the time at all to bring up those kinds of proposals. If President Trump is truly honest about his intention to become a peacemaker and not a war maker, because any proposal that comes close to forcibly deporting Palestinians will basically be a prescription for instability in the region. And I guess this was clearly reflected in the statements that were made by President Sisi as well as the Egyptian Foreign Ministry.
Regional instability, exactly the word. Let me here go to Mr. Omar, and from your point of view, the forcible relocation of Palestinians, how would that affect the regional stability?
طبعا يعني أي دولة حينما يتم تفريغها إجباريا من سكانها.
Any country is forcibly being evacuated from its residents. If we're talking about the evacuate Gaza from its residents, it will be in a direct Israeli occupation into Gaza. So this will record an unprecedented state to evacuate all that size of a space that bigger than other rounds gave a space for it, and this would jeopardize the peace process and the stability in the region. Gaza Strip is adjacent to the Mediterranean area, and the operation is theater of Suez Canal operation, and all this matters related to the supply chains and trade relation between the north and the south and the east and the east. And the Palestinian people throughout the past 15 months proved that they are very stick and holding the presence of their lands. Such a project won't have any acceptable by the Palestinian people, as well as the Arab people as a whole. So the idea of displacement will face a very popular and gross resistance that would trigger a new circle of violence. Maybe it would be more than the past 15 months or the first or second Intifada uprising. So the Palestinian people would understand that the